Dear all, a very good evening to all of you. Sorry everyone. Dear all, a very good evening to all of you. I, Advocate Achal Srivastav, on behalf of our TAXO team, welcome all our attendees today to our 28th live session of TAXO Prime Time. As you all must be aware, TAXO Prime Time is a weekly webinar session on analysis of the latest judgments, important developments in GST, and unfolding complex topics simple. In today's session, we will have with us CA Anmol Gupta ji, an indirect tax expert having vast experience in tax litigation. Sir will give you all a detailed analysis of recent judgments under indirect tax. So, without taking much time, I would now like to welcome Anmol sir and request him to enlighten us on today's session. Sir, I request you to please take the session forward.
Thank you, Achal. Is my voice audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, a very good evening to everyone. I welcome you all to today's session. Today's knowledge enhancing session, I must say. At the outset, I would like to thank Team TAXO for giving me this opportunity again and come before you all to share my knowledge and my experience with you all. Without taking any much time, I'll quickly start with my topic. Achal, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. So please share your screen again.
Is the PPT visible?
Yes, sir.
All right. So the topic for today's session is recent judgment that have been pronounced under indirect taxes. Though very recently there are only few judgments that have come on the top on important topics of the GST regime or the erstwhile indirect tax regime. Though we are trying to cover some of the very recent issues that assessees are facing in their day-to-day practice. So I have covered for today's discussion, I have covered 4 topics: that what to do in cases where appeal is filed after the stipulated time period, or I would say the time period for filing the appeal has already been lapsed. So I actually come across many cases these days where assessee forgets to file the appeal, and the time period that is stipulated in the law, in the GST law or the erstwhile law, has already been lapsed before the first appellate authority. So now a query comes up that what to do. So we are going to discuss such scenarios in light of a very recent judgment wherein a view is taken by an honorable high court that we are going to discuss. The second topic that we are going to discuss, which is almost related to the first topic, is the recent circular that has been pronounced brought by CBIC recently on ITC mismatch between 2A and 3. So we are going to discuss what are the contents of that circular and how to handle if any mismatch notice has been received from the department regarding 2A and 3. The third topic that we are going to discuss is whether an amount deposited during such proceedings will be held as a voluntary deposit or a deposit under coercion, not a voluntary deposit. So basically, this is another pain area that I come across in many cases, wherein the taxpayers have this query that a such proceeding was conducted, and particularly if I talk about the Delhi state, many instances in Delhi NCR or adjoining areas, or Haryana or this UP, we are seeing that in cases of such, the departments get some recovery made from the taxpayer under the threat of coercion or duress. So basically, all those amounts that have been deposited by the taxpayers during such proceedings are later on held by the department as paid after admitting the liability on self-assessment. So we are going to discuss those acts in light of some circulars and with the help of 2 judgments of a Delhi High Court and a Gujarat High Court that we are going to discuss. And the fourth topic that we are going to discuss is another important topic in today's era of litigation, wherein if a statement in the case of bogus billing or in the case of clandestine removal has been recorded of any person associated with the case, wherein there is a confession that has been made. So a question comes up that how much that department can rely upon this statement, or what is the relevancy of this statement where assessee has confessed the dues, the wrongdoing on his part. So that we are going to discuss when a statement can be relied upon by the revenue. So coming to the first topic, the first topic is what to do in cases appeal is filed after stipulated time period, or in other words, the time period for filing appeal has lapsed. So before jumping on to the today's topic, we are going to first discuss what is the time limit for filing appeal before the first appellate authority in GST. We are not going to discuss about the second appellate authority because one, the condonable time limit that is there with the second appellate authority is not defined in the act. So it can be that delay can be condoned to any period as per the satisfaction of the honorable tribunal. And the second reason why we are not discussing the second appellate authority is because tribunal is not constituted yet, and therefore it is not the right time to discuss that particular provision. The pain point for today's scenario is where a assessee forgets to file appeal before the first appellate authority within the time stipulated under section 107. It may be due to many genuine reasons. So we are going to discuss all those things now. Section 107 says that any person aggrieved by a decision or order passed by the adjudicating authority may appeal to the first appellate authority within 3 months from the date on which such decision or order is communicated. And subsection 4 says the appellate authority may, if he is satisfied that the appellant was prevented by sufficient cause from presenting the appeal within the aforesaid period of 3 months, allow it to be presented within a further period of 1 month. So the provision in section 107 subsection 4 clearly says that the condonable time period that is available with the first appellate authority is only 1. So what we infers from this particular provision is that the normal time period for filing an appeal is 3 months. However, if the appeal is further delayed by 1 month, then it can be entertained by the appellate authority if the sufficient cause is shown. However, if it is beyond the 4 months time period, it is not the jurisdiction or the control of the first appellate authority to entertain your appeal. So now comes a natural question that what will happen in cases where the appeal is filed after the 4th month or appeal is not filed and the 4 months have already been lapsed. Now, what decision lies with the taxpayer? So that we are going to discuss with the help of a very recent judgment of Gujarat High Court. The name of the case is Kishore Projects Private Limited versus State of Gujarat. The citation is 2023 1 TMI 141. It is a pronouncement of Honorable Gujarat High Court and a very recent judgment which is recently delivered on 22nd of December 2022. What are the facts of the case? The facts of the case were that the order was passed demanding interest, tax and penalty basis a mismatch of ITC between 2A and 3B. So there was a ITC difference between 2A and 3B of the assessee, and basis that difference an order was passed confirming levy of demand, interest and penalty. The appeal could not be filed by the assessee within the stipulated time period of 3 months plus 1 month, like we just studied in section 107 of the CGST Act. Due to certain genuine reasons, the reasons in this particular case was that the mother of the petitioner died during that period of 4 months, and his sister was also suffering from cancer. So petitioner placed these facts on the record of the Honorable Gujarat High Court and pleaded that I could not file appeal within the prescribed time limit of 4 months, and therefore he approached directly High Court. He did not file any appeal with the first appellate authority because it is bound to be rejected by the first appellate authority. So they directly approached the Honorable High Court by way of writ petition under Article 226 of the Constitution of India. Also, it was stated by the Kishore Projects Private Limited that the mismatch has arisen due to the fact that my vendors did not file GST returns on time, and therefore it is no fault of mine and I should not be made liable to reverse that particular amount of ITC that has been confirmed in the order. So now what is held in this particular matter? So Gujarat High Court, after placing reliance upon a very popular judgment of Bharti Airtel Limited, which was pronounced by the Honorable Supreme Court of India, wherein it was held that GSTR 2A is only a facilitator for taking an informed decision. It is not nowhere a basis to compute demand or to put a restriction on the ITC that has to be claimed by the service recipient. And with these findings, it was held that because there was a genuine problem with the petitioner, the delay in filing appeal before the first appellate authority was condoned, and the matter was remitted back to the first appellate authority with directions not to object regarding the limitation. So summing up again, what happened that the assessee could not file the appeal within the stipulated time period of 4 months. Therefore, assessee directly approached the Honorable Jurisdictional Gujarat High Court. Gujarat High Court, after understanding the merits of the case, considered the matter as a fit matter to be remanded back to the appellate authority, so that the appellate authority, without objecting to the time period that you have not filed appeal within 4 months, without objecting to such time period, on the basis of direction of Gujarat High Court, they have to entertain the appeal of the Kishore Projects Private Limited, that is the petitioner in this particular case, and decide the case on merits as per the judgment of Bharti Airtel. So basically, what are the key takeaways from this particular judgment of Gujarat High Court? One, if your matter is meritorious. Second, it can be remanded back by the High Court. So if in case any assessee is not able to file the appeal within a stipulated time period of 4 months, then it is not in the jurisdiction of the first appellate authority to condone the delay beyond 4 months. They do not have the power to condone delay beyond a period of 4 months, and therefore the matter has to be approached to the High Court, and High Court, using their writ jurisdiction as conferred under Article 226 of the Constitution of India, High Court has the power to direct appellate authority to go beyond the law and accept the appeal of the assessee by way and dispose of on the merits if there are solid merits in the case of the assessee. So another topic, the second topic of the day that is connected with the first topic, is what is to be done in case there is an ITC mismatch between that reflected in 2A of the assessee and that availed via 3B of the assessee. So basically there are many instances wherein the GSTR 2A that is reflected on the common portal of the assessee contains the ITC, let's say, of a particular amount of 100 rupees. However, the assessee has taken the ITC of 120 rupees. So all of you must be aware that there is a automatic generated mismatch report by the system that is given to the officer, and based on that report, officer sends you a ASMT 10 or a show cause notice asking you why there is a mismatch of this 20 rupees and you are ineligible to claim this 20 rupees, so you have to reverse this 20. So very recently, in the month of December 2022, on 27th December 2022 to be particular, there was a circular number 183/15/2022 that was released by the CBIC, clarifying that how to deal with the cases wherein there is a mismatch between GSTR 2A and so the instructions were laid down by the CBIC in this very recent circular on how to deal with such cases and to ensure uniformity, that every officer is following the proper procedure of the law in dealing with such matters wherein there is a difference. Now, one very important point that is to note here is that this circular is only given for the period 2017-18 and 18-19. It is not for the period 18-19-20, 20-21, 22-21-22. It is only for the first 2 years of the implementation of GST, that is 2017 and 18 and 18-19. So now the first slide contains, I have bifurcated this particular circular into 3 or 4 slides, where I am going to discuss in the first slide what are the issues that have been addressed by the circular. So this is a very good circular that has been released by the CBIC. In this circular, many pain areas of the taxpayers have been categorically addressed in this circular. They have duly acknowledged the fact that due to so and so genuine difficulties, the recipients have been made liable to reverse ITC just because of the default of the supplier. So we are going to discuss those 2 or 3 points that have been acknowledged by this circular in the preamble of this preamble portion of the circular. Then the second slide talks about the various scenarios due to which there can be a mismatch between GSTR 2A and 3B, and those scenarios have been addressed by the circular. The third slide talks about what is the proper procedure that has to be followed by the proper officer wherever there is a mismatch between GSTR 2A and 3B. And the fourth slide talks about the conditions within which this particular relaxation or this particular circular has been released. So going forward, let's discuss what are the areas, the pain areas that have been categorically acknowledged in this particular circular. The circular says that during initial years of GST, suppliers have failed to furnish correct details of outward supplies in their GSTR 1, which led to certain discrepancies or deficiencies in Form 2A of the recipient. So the CBIC has duly acknowledged this particular fact that due to suppliers non-filing of the proper details or the correct details or the complete return in Form GSTR1, the recipient is being made to suffer because that particular supply is not being auto-populated in the GSTR2A of the recipient. Going forward, it has also been acknowledged. These are basically the submissions that we take whenever we receive a notice of GSTR 2A versus 3B mismatch. We always take this submission that, sir, I am not liable because the supplier must have filled the incorrect details due to which it is not auto-populating in my 2A, or the supplier has forgot to pay the taxes, but I have made the payment to him, so I should not be made liable. Also, we used to take this particular plea that, sir, 2A was not even operational during 17-18 and 18-19, and when a return was not even there, how a taxpayer should be how a taxpayer should be made liable in absence of such a return. And the and another plea that we used to take is a section rule 36(4), which used to bar availment of ITC to the extent of initially 20%, in addition to that shown in 2A, and later on 10 and 5%, was introduced, was not there in the years 1718 and 1819, and was introduced in the year 2020. And therefore, why should I be made liable in absence of any such provision? So these particular 3 points have been properly categorically acknowledged by the CBIC, wherein the first thing that has been acknowledged is that due to the fault of supplier, there is a deficiency or discrepancy in GSTR 2A of the recipient. The second point, GSTR 2A was not even there in the initial stages of GST, and therefore how the recipient would be able to map the ITC that he has to claim in 3B with the 2A that is showing in absence of any such 2A. And the third point being that the restriction regarding availment of ITC in the form of Rule 36(4) only came into effect from 9th of October 2019. And therefore, in the year 1718 and 1819, there was no such restriction. And therefore, based on these 4 scenarios, instructions were given. What are those 4 scenarios, sir? The first scenario is that supplier did not file GSTR 1 but filed GSTR 3B, and therefore, since the supplier has not filed GSTR 1, it will not come in my 2A. Second scenario, supplier has filed GSTR 1 and 3B but failed to report a particular supply in GSTR 1. So basically, if I have taken a particular supply in April month, supplier has filed GSTR 1 and 3B of April, but that one particular supply between me and that supplier has not been reported by my supplier in its GSTR 1. The third point, that supplier, this is a very common case that I hear these days, that the supplier, instead of reporting particular supply as B2B, reported as B2C, and therefore it is not coming in my GSTR 2A. And the fourth and the last scenario is supplier has declared the supply with wrong GSTN of the recipient. So instead of reporting my GSTN, he has reported some other GSTN due to a clerical mistake. Say any one digit or any one alphabet or any 2-3 digits alphabet has been wrongly reported by the supplier in his GSTR 1, due to which it is not coming in my 2A. So all these 4 scenarios, a procedure has been given by the circular that you follow this particular procedure, and basis this circular you allow the ITC if it is found genuine. What is the procedure? The procedure says that first you have to seek the details of all such invoices on which ITC is claimed in 3B but not reflected in 2A. This is commonly being done right now also, that whenever there is a mismatch between 2A and 3B, officer used to identify that on what all invoices there is a difference between a 2A and 3B and whether those invoices are eligible to ITC or not. So first they have to seek details from the taxpayer, that give me a detail of all those invoices which are not appearing in your 2A but you have claimed ITC in 3B. Then you have to ascertain the fulfillment of conditions of 16(2). That is whether you have the copy of those invoices. So for that, officer is going to ask the original copy of those invoices. Then whether the goods or services have actually been received or not, for that he may require many documents like toll tax receipt, e-way bill receipts, consignment note, and etc, etc. And then the third condition that has to be fulfilled is whether the payment of value of such supply has been made by the recipient to the supplier, and for that he is going to ask your ledger as well as the bank statement. So if these 3 conditions are fulfilled, then he may proceed. After that, he has to check whether the reversal under section 17 and 18 is not required on that particular ITC. So for example, I have 10 invoices. Out of those 10 invoices, 6 invoices are appearing in my GSTR 2A and 4 invoices are not appearing in 3B. So with respect to those 4 invoices, the officer has to first check whether the conditions of 16(2) are being fulfilled. Those 3 conditions, possession of invoice, receipt, actual receipt of goods or services, and payment of value of those 4 invoices to the supplier. And then he has to check that whether in respect of those 4 invoices, is there any credit that has required to be reversed under section 17 and 18. Section 17 basically talks about the proportionate ITC when I am rendering both output, taxable as well as exempt services. And section 17 also talk about block credit. Section 18 also have some conditions that needs to be fulfilled, and in case of non-fulfillment there is a reversal required of ITC. So proper officer will check that whether in respect of those 4 invoices any reversal under section 17 or 18 is required to be made. Thereafter he will check that whether the ITC in respect of those 4 invoices has been availed within the time limit prescribed in section 16(4). The time limit under section section 16.4, you all must be aware that with respect to 1718, it was originally 30th of September, which was later on extended to March 2019. And now the law has been recently amended from due date of September's return to 30th November of next financial year. And therefore, it has to check that whether in respect of those 4 invoices, whether the ITC has been availed within the time limit. It should not be time barred. After all these things have been checked, now once the officer is satisfied regarding the admissibility of the such ITC, that yes, that ITC is admissible, now the only condition that remains for which the proper officer says that no, you have to reverse the ITC for that particular pain point, for that particular condition, section 16(2)(c), which says that the tax in respect of such supply must have been paid by the supplier to the government exchequer. So in the earlier law, there was no such condition, but in GST law by way of 16(2)(c), there is a condition that you can only avail ITC when the supplier must have paid the taxes on that supply to the government exchequer. So department used to say that if it is not appearing in your 2A, the supplier must have not paid the taxes to the government exchequer, and since supplier has not paid the taxes, compliance of section 16(2)(c) is not fulfilled, and therefore we are not giving you the we are not allowing you this ITC, and you have to reverse this. So with respect to the condition of 16(2)(c), certain guidelines have been laid down, though these guidelines were already being followed by some of the officers. But it is very good that this circular has been released by the CBIC, because now it is legally binding on the officer. So in some cases, the officer used to say that I'm not going to accept this particular procedure that has come in this circular now. I'm not going to accept. So now it is binding on the officer, and you can practically you can take a copy of this circular and show it to the officer that now, sir, this procedure is binding upon you, and if I'm complying with this procedure, if I'm complying with the conditions stipulated in this procedure, you have to allow my ITC. Now, what are those conditions? It says that if the difference between 2A and 3B exceeds 5 lakhs, in most of the cases, it is going to exceed 5 lakhs, except for small taxpayers. If the difference exceeds rupees 5 lakhs, you ask for a CA or CMA, cost accountant certificate, and the such certificate must be a valid unique DIN number, document identification, unique document identification number, which the Institute of both the professions provide on their website. So they say that you have to seek a certificate by the CA, chartered accountant, or a cost accountant, and it must bear a valid UDIN number. And where the difference is less than 5 lakhs, the taxpayer has to produce a certificate from the supplier. Now the question comes, sir, what are the components of that certificate? What that certificate should contain? So the contents of the certificate, it is common for the CA, CMA, and the supplier certificate. The contents are common. So if the difference exceeds 5 lakhs, the certificate is same, but it has to be attested by a CA or CMA. But if it is less than 5 lakhs, it has to be attested by the supplier. What are the contents? It has 2 contents. One, the supplies in respect of said invoice of supplier has actually been made by the supplier of said registered person. So it says that the CA or CMA or the supplier, as the case may be, they have to give a certificate categorically stating that the supplies have actually been made, the goods have actually been moved from one place to another, or the service have actually been undertaken. And the second part of that certificate is the tax on such supplies have actually been paid by the supplier through his GST or 3B. So if the difference is more than 5 lakh, the CA or CMA, the chartered accountant or the cost accountant will say that we have checked the documents and records of the supplier, and as per our assessment, he has paid the taxes to the government exchequer. But if the difference is less than 5 lakh, the supplier will himself say that, sir, I have paid the taxes on this particular supply. You allow the ITC to the recipient. So summing up this particular slide, summing up the previous and this slide, the procedure that has been stipulated is, first you have to identify the invoices on which are not appearing in 2A and ITC in respect of which have been availed in 3B. After those invoices, in my example, those 4 invoices have been ascertained, you check whether the condition in respect of those 4 invoices under section 16(2), the 3 conditions as mentioned in circular, have been fulfilled. If it is fulfilled, you check whether any reversal of ITC is there under section 17 or 18 on those 4 invoices. If not, proceed and check whether the ITC in respect of those 4 invoices have been availed within the time limit given under section 16(4). If yes, come to the last point, that is compliance of section 16(2), which says that if the difference is more than 5 lakhs, you ask for a CA CMA certificate, If the difference is less than 5 lakhs, you ask for a supplier certificate. Supplier certificate should contain two things. One, the supply has actually taken place, the goods have moved, the services have performed. Second, the tax in respect of such supplies have been paid by the supplier to the government exchequer through GSTR-B. So basically, what are the key takeaways till now? The key takeaways till now of this circular is very simple. This circular will come as a very helping hand to the taxpayers as well as the professionals, wherein there is any inquiry matter going on regarding the mismatch between 2A and 3B. You just show this circular, you make a compilation, you make a reply, and you show all these things beforehand to the officer. So you help the officer in ascertaining all these particular things. You show the officer that, sir, section 16(2)(3) compliances all made. What are those compliances? Sir, goods have moved. Sir, I am in a possession of valid invoices. Sir, my value of supply has been paid to the government, to the supplier by way of bank state. Then you show that, sir, my ITC is a valid ITC. It is not blocked under section 17. There is no proportionate ITC that has to be done under section 17(1), and section 18 compliances are also fulfilled. You show to the officer that, sir, section 16(4), I have taken credit within the timelines as per section 16(4). You give to the officer a CA, CMA or a supplier certificate. So if you make a compilation on the very first day, it will be very helpful to the officer, and he is bound by this particular circular, and thereafter he has to allow your particular credit. Going forward, this particular circular comes with certain conditions. The condition says, we very commonly, if we go to this state tax department, we hear a very common concept of cutoff date, that whatever ITC is appearing in a subsequent period return, meaning thereby my ITC pertains to the period of, let's say, April 18, and it is not showing in the 2A of April 18, or for that matter in the entire 2A of 18/9, that particular invoice. Now the officer says that show this particular invoice in any subsequent period, GSTR1, or for the recipient GSTR 2A, but make sure that particular ITC, the particular details of that supply has been furnished by the supplier before the cutoff date. In other words, अगर मान लीजिए आपका 17, 18 या 18, 19 का कोई क्रेडिट है, और सेक्शन 16(4) में एक टाइमलाइन दी गई है कि इतने पीरियड तक आपको क्रेडिट जो है अलाउ करना है, आपको क्रेडिट अवेल करना है, और अगर मान लीजिए उस पीरियड के बाद किसी टैक्स पेयर ने अपनी GSTR1 भरी, जिसकी वजह से वो उस पर्टिकुलर पीरियड में GSTR1 में शो तो हो रहा है, लेकिन वो GSTR1 कट ऑफ डेट के बाद भरी गई है, तो उस वजह से आपको डिपार्टमेंट बहुत बार ये बात बोलता है कि हम आपका क्रेडिट ये अलाउ नहीं करेंगे, वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू अलाउ दिस क्रेडिट बिकॉज द GSTR1 हैज बीन फाइल्ड बाय द सप्लायर आफ्टर द कट ऑफ डेट एज पर सेक्शन 16(4). सो द सर्कुलर आल्सो सेज द सेम, दैट द रिलैक्सेशन प्रोवाइडेड इन केस ऑफ 17-18 is not available in case where the supplier has filed his GSTR1 after the due date of furnishing GSTR1 for the month of March 9. So basically it talks about the cutoff date only. I have given you the background of this particular condition. Going forward to the second condition, the clarifications are case specific and given for bona fide errors committed in reporting during 17 and 18-19. The intent of this particular condition is that this circular is not for the cases of bogus invoices or fake invoices. This circular is only for the cases where there is a bona fide error committed by the taxpayer in showing supplies in his GSTR1, due to which recipient is being made to suffer. The third condition, it says that this instruction will not apply to any completed proceeding, and it will only apply to the ongoing proceedings, which may be inquiry, audit, adjudication or appeal. So if your case is pending after issuance of SCN, pending for adjudication, or if your case is pending before the appeal proceedings, or the matter is pending at the inquiry or audit stage only, then in that case these instructions will apply. It will not apply to the matters which have already been closed by the proper office. So this is the circular that we discussed in the second part of our discussion. The third part goes for whether the amount deposited during such proceedings is a voluntary act or not. So like I just mentioned at the start of this seminar, that there are many cases wherein the assessee is faced with a challenge that whenever a search is conducted in his premises, the department, under the fear, gets certain amount deposited from the taxpayer, under the fear of arrest, maybe under the fear of continued search proceedings. They say that you deposit certain tax amount, and we'll conclude the search proceedings or will not initiate the arrest. So assessee deposits certain amount during the search proceedings, but later on department says that this amount was deposited after admitting the liability, and now you have no right to claim refund of this amount in case you win this particular matter, or the department continues the proceedings against the assessor. So in that particular case, a question comes up that whether that amount that has been deposited during such proceedings, whether that amount is actually a voluntary amount or a amount that has been paid after admitting the liability. So to answer this particular question, though there are many cases in domain which are available on this particular aspect, but those majority of those cases pertain to the erstwhile law, and department, though they are also binding in current law, but department many a times do not accept those judgments saying that these pertain to the previous law. You bring a judgment of the current. So here there is a judgment of current law, a judgment of Honorable Delhi High Court, a very recent judgment pronounced on 20th of December 2022. The name of the judgment is Vallabh Textiles versus Senior Intelligence Officers and others. So this is a matter of DGGI, wherein the facts were that the DGGI claimed that petitioner has made supply in cash and did not disclose the such supply to the department, as a consequence of which no GST was paid. So this is a concept of clandestine removal, basically, that you have made certain cash supplies which is not reported in your books of accounts or to the GST authorities, and therefore no GST is paid there. A search was conducted on 16th of February 2022 and it went on till 17th of February 2022. The search was conducted for 2 days. Various documents and evidences were resumed by the search party from the taxpayers' premises, and as a result of the search, there were two entities of the petitioner, Vallabh Textiles. There were two entities. One entity deposited 1.15 crore via DRC3 on 17th of February 2022, which includes tax interest penalty, and another entity of the petitioner deposited 1.32 crores via DRC3 of 17th February, which also includes tax interest and penalty. So now the dispute was, the assessee pleaded before the Honorable Delhi High Court that, sir, this was deposited due to the coercion by the officers under duress, and it was not a voluntary act. And now that the search proceedings have been concluded, please grant me refund of this particular amount, as I have not admitted any I have not admitted any dues, and this was purely made as a result of coercion process. But the department, before the Honorable Delhi High Court also, department contested that no, this was an admitted amount. This was paid after self-assessment only. We did not do any coercion. And assessee self-assessed their liability during the such proceedings and paid voluntary. So now what was held in this particular case by Honorable Delhi High Court? Honorable Delhi High Court said that the fact that deposits were made in multiple tranches at a time when search was ongoing would show that payment was not voluntary. These deposits are made, and these deposits are not made under section 73(5) or 73(4). So basically section 73(5) and section 73(4) says that if you are paying any amount as a result of self-assessment to avoid issuance of show cause notice, then you pay that amount in DRC3 and deposit and intimate to the concerned officer, after which officer will not issue any show cause notice and issue an acknowledgement in DRC4. So it was observed by the Honorable Delhi High Court that this payment was not made under section 73(5) or section 73(4) after self-assessment. Since this payment was made during the ongoing search proceeding, in this judgment, the 4 challans that have been produced, DRC3, the timing of that challan was also taken into consideration. The challans were paid at 4 o'clock in the morning, at 6 o'clock in the morning, at 7 o'clock in the morning, and search was ongoing till 9:30 in the morning. So department said that since the High Court said that since this payment was made during search was ongoing and also made at a very odd hour, it cannot be said that these payments are made voluntarily. These payments have been made after coercion act of the department. Further, it was said that if deposits were voluntary, department should have acknowledged those payments by way of issuing DRC4. Since they have not acknowledged those payments by way of issuing DRC4, this will not be regarded as a voluntary payment. Then a very important judgment of Gujarat High Court in Bhumi Associates was followed by the Honorable Delhi High Court in this matter. So basically, Gujarat High Court in Bhumi Associates has laid down some directions which has to be followed in cases to determine whether a particular payment is made as a voluntary payment or as a result of the proceedings after coercion. So Bhumi Associates, Gujarat High Court in Bhumi Associates categorically directed the CBIC and GST to come up with a circular or instruction incorporating some of the guidelines that have been laid down by the Gujarat. Among those guidelines, there's this one guideline which says even if the assessee comes forward to make voluntary payment in the prescribed form, that is DRC3, he or she should be advised to file the same the day after the search has ended and the concerned officers have left the premises of. So ये क्या कहता है? ये कहता है गुजरात हाई कोर्ट ने कैटेगोरिकली ये बात बोली, सीबीआईसी को इंस्ट्रक्ट किया कि आप ऐसे एक इंस्ट्रक्शंस, एक गाइडलाइंस लेकर आओ जिसमें आप ये बात क्लियरली बोलो कि अगर कोई ऑफिसर को असेसी बोलता भी है कि सर मुझे जमा कराना है, मेरे को आप आए, आपने सर्च की, मुझे पता चला कि मेरी एक लायबिलिटी बनती है एंड नाउ आई वांट टू डिपॉजिट दिस पर्टिकुलर लायबिलिटी, यू से नो, वंस वी गो आउट फ्रॉम दिस प्रीमाइसेस, वी लीव द प्रीमाइसेस, द सर्च इज कंक्लूडेड, यू मेक द पेमेंट देयर आफ्टर. तो आप उसको ये मत बोलिए कि हाँ हाँ आप पेमेंट कर दो, आप उसको मना कीजिए. ऑफिसर शुड से नो टू द एसएससी दैट डोंट मेक दिस पेमेंट राइट नाउ, वंस वी लीव द प्रीमाइसेस, वंस द सर्च इज कंक्लूडेड, देन यू मेक दिस पेमेंट सो दैट डिपार्टमेंट भी बाद में ये बात बोल सके कि सर ये तो कोर्जन में हो ही नहीं सकती क्योंकि जब हम चले गए ये हमारे पीछे से पेमेंट करके लाया. और असेसी भी ये बात ना बोल सके कि सर मेरे को जो है तलवार की नोक पे मुझसे जो है मेरे से काम कराया गया, मुझसे पेमेंट जो है कराई गई. However, an instruction was issued. You all must be aware that in the May month of year 2022, and instructions were issued which were very पॉपुलराइज्ड, जिसमें एक बहुत अच्छी बात डिपार्टमेंट ने लिख दी कि सर जीएसटीआईएन आपका है, आईडी आपकी है, पासवर्ड आपका है, कैसे आप कह सकते हो कोर्जन हुआ? आपने खुद अपना लैपटॉप खोला, आपने खुद आईडी पासवर्ड डाला, आपने जमा कराया, कोर्जन हो ही नहीं सकता है. तो दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट ने इस केस में दे हैव हेल्ड आफ्टर दीज ऑब्जर्वेशंस दैट द डिपॉजिट वाज नॉट वॉलंटरी एंड दे डायरेक्टेड द रेवेन्यू टू रिफंड बैक द अमाउंट along with interest from the date of deposit. And also Delhi High Court in a very recent judgment of Vallabh Textiles have again directed the CBIC to align the instruction number 1/2022-23 dated 25th of May 2022 with the directions issued by Gujarat High Court in Bhumi. So since the directions issued by Gujarat High Court in Bhumi Associates were not incorporated in the instructions number 1 dated 25th May 2022, Delhi High Court has now again issued directions to the CBIC or the board to align these particular instructions with the judgment of Gujarat High Court in Bhumi. So therefore, by way of this judgment, we have understood that in what cases the amount will be held as a voluntary deposit and in what cases the amount will be held as not as an involuntary deposit made by the department. Now coming to the fourth and last topic for the day. The last topic says that when can statements be relied upon by the revenue? So there is a case scenario wherein the department conducted a search and the case may be pertaining to fake invoice, the case may be pertaining to cash sales, clandestine removal or any other particular. And during the search proceeding, the statement has been recorded by the department wherein the taxpayer or any employee of the taxpayer or any customer of the taxpayer or let's say transporter of the taxpayer has admitted to a particular defect. They have admitted that sir no movement has been done, the sales were made on a cash basis, following so and so liability has been evaded by me, I have to pay so and so liability to the government. So whenever there is a confession on the part of the taxpayer or anyone associated with the taxpayer, can that statement be relied upon by the revenue as it is? The answer is no. There is a procedure contemplated under the GST law which says that whenever a statement has to be relied upon by the officer, it is subject to a particular procedure. What is that procedure? The procedure is given in section 136 of CGST Act 2017, which has the heading relevancy of statements under certain circumstances. It states that a statement made and signed by a person on appearance in response to any summons issued under section 70 during the course of any inquiry or proceedings under this act shall be relevant for the purpose of proving in any prosecution for an offense under this act the truth of the facts which it contains. Kya? First, when the person who made the statement is dead or cannot be found or is incapable of giving evidence or is kept out of the way by the adverse party or whose presence cannot be obtained without an amount of delay or expense which under the circumstances of the case the court considers unreasonable. तो A part क्या कहता है सर? A part ये कहता है कि जिसने स्टेटमेंट दी या तो उसका निधन हो गया हो या फिर वो हमें मिल ना पा रहा हो या फिर वो अब इनकेपेबल हो गया हो एविडेंस देने के लिए या स्टेटमेंट दोबारा देने के लिए या फिर उसको जैसे हम मूवीज में दिखाया जाता है कि उसको कोर्ट ही नहीं पहुंचने दिया जा रहा, उसको एडवर्स पार्टी ने जो है रोक रखा है उसको डिपार्टमेंट को मिलने से, या फिर जिसकी प्रेजेंस ऑब्टेन नहीं की जा सकती बिना किसी डिले के या किसी एक्सपेंसेस के, मेजर एक्सपेंसेस के, तो उस केस में जो है ए पार्ट कहता है कि आप स्टेटमेंट को एज इट इज एक्सेप्ट। लेकिन अगर ए पार्ट नहीं है तो उस केस में बी पार्ट सेज व्हेन द पर्सन हु मेड द स्टेटमेंट इज एग्जामिन्ड एज अ विटनेस इन द केस बिफोर द कोर्ट एंड कोर्ट इज ऑफ द ओपिनियन दैट हैविंग रिगार्ड टू द सर्कमस्टांसेस ऑफ द केस द स्टेटमेंट शुड बी admitted in evidence in the interest of justice. What is the meaning of clause B? The clause B says that the person who has made the statement, if that person is not falling under clause A, that is the person is not dead, person can be found, the person is capable of giving evidence, the person is not kept out of the way by the adverse party, or the person presence can be obtained without any amount of delay or expense. In such cases, the person has to be cross-witnessed, cross-examined by the adverse by the party whose case is pending, and thereafter only the court or the authority can decide that yes, this statement can be relied upon or cannot. सरल शब्दों में क्या बोला सर? सिंपल सेक्शन 136 ने ये बात बोली कि अगर क्लॉज ए में फॉल करते हो तो स्टेटमेंट को एज इट इज एक्सेप्ट कर लो, और अगर क्लॉज ए में फॉल नहीं करते हो तो क्लॉज बी आपको बोलता है कि एक क्रॉस एग्जामिनेशन की अपॉर्चुनिटी जो है एसएससी को मिलनी चाहिए एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी के सामने या कोर्ट के सामने, और फिर कोर्ट जो है या एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी जो है डिसाइड करेगी कि क्या हम इसकी स्टेटमेंट को माने या ना माने। सेम प्रोविजन सर सेक्शन 9D ऑफ सेंट्रल एक्साइज एक्ट 1944 में एग्जिस्ट करता था हमारे पुराने लॉ में। अब ऐसी बहुत सारी जजमेंट्स आई पुराने लॉ में जिन्होंने ये वाली बात बोली कि अगर स्टेटमेंट आपकी कोई रिकॉर्ड हुई है और उसका प्रॉपर प्रोसीजर फॉलो नहीं हुआ, मतलब कि क्रॉस एग्जामिनेशन उसका एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी द्वारा नहीं हुआ, तो एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी कैन नॉट एक्सेप्ट दो स्टेट। द नेम ऑफ दीज दोस जजमेंट्स आर पंजाब एंड हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट अंबिका इंटरनेशनल, इलाहाबाद हाई कोर्ट परमार्थ आयरन प्राइवेट लिमिटेड, गुजरात हाई कोर्ट छजू सिंह एस कनवल, ट्राइब्यूनल इलाहाबाद निधि ऑटो प्राइवेट, and there are many more judgments. There are ample number of judgments on this particular case. So the reason behind which I have discussed this particular issue before you is there are many cases today wherein in case of fake invoices or clandestine removal, department has a statement of any person which department intends to use against you, and you feel that no, this statement has been taken under coercion, and if an opportunity of cross examination has been given and also the statement is not retracted by the concerned party, but now if the opportunity of cross examination can be given, the contents of those statement can be proved to be false by way of presence of that particular person whose statement was recorded. So in that particular case, it is advised to all the professionals as well as the taxpayers that in your reply, you please ask an opportunity of cross examination from the officer. If the officer does not give you an opportunity of cross examination, these are particular cases which I have elaborated before you, presented before you, which says that if the proper procedure is not followed, the opportunity of cross examination is not given, in that case statement cannot be relied. And in your case, if the opportunity of cross examination is given, then you can prove that the statement was taken under coercion. The contents of the statement are not true. The statement was itself taken by wrong method. So the purpose of discussing this particular issue was to make you aware that in all those cases where you have a statement against you, you just make a request in writing to the concerned officer that before placing any reliance on this particular judgment, before admitting the statement, or before admitting this particular statement as a evidence, you give me an opportunity of cross examination and I'll prove you that this statement is false, this statement is not correct. So this is all for today. Today we have discussed 4 topics. First topic was what to do in cases where the time period for filing appeal has been lapsed. In that we discussed that if the case is meritorious and the delay is a genuine delay, then in that case you can approach High Court, and High Court after using its powers under Article 226 can direct the authority to entertain your appeal. Second topic that we discussed is the recent circular brought into existence on 27th of December 2022, which laid down guidelines regarding 2A and 3B mismatch, and I tried to give you a glimpse of what you should do in those cases where there is a mismatch between 2A and 3B with the help of that circular. The third topic that we discussed was in the case of relevancy of statements, that what is the relevancy of statement where a statement has to be admitted as evidence, there is an opportunity of cross examination. And the fourth topic that we discussed for the day, the last topic, was whether the amount deposited during search proceedings is a voluntary deposit or a involuntary deposit after under coercion or threat. That is all for today. I again thank at the last, I again want to thank Team TAXO for giving me this opportunity, and all the participants to join us today and giving me a patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for a wonderful deliberation and giving us a detailed analysis on recent judicial pronouncements and circular under indirect tax. Now we will have a quick Q&A round. If anyone has any query, please drop the question in the chat box. Meanwhile, we are happy to announce that TAXO have launched the mobile app, which is freely downloadable from the Google Play Store. Sir, as of now, there are no questions. So shall we wrap up the session?
Yes.
So with this, we have come to an end of today's wonderful session, and we hope you all found...
Has raised hand. Yeah. Santosh ji has raised hand. You can allow either Santosh ji can write his query in the chat box, or you can allow him to unmute and ask his query on a real
team. Can we unmute Santosh Kumar Mishra ji?
Sure.
Santosh ji, in the meanwhile, if your query is not too, Santosh ji, you may unmute yourself and ask.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, in case of, if I am getting a notice of GSTR 1 and 3B mismatch,
yes,
they have not given the DIN number on the notice. So, should we contest that your notice is not justifiable? First question. And can we ask the invoices or the workings which they are mentioning as mismatch? On which basis we will target the supplier because of which supplier, which invoice this mismatch is occurring. So what procedure we should adopt in such case, sir?
Sir, I have two questions here. First, are you talking about 1 versus 3B mismatch or 2A versus 3B mismatch?
1 versus 3B.
Sir, in case of 1 versus 3B, you're talking about outward supplies, not inward supplies.
Yes,
so
sir.
If you have reported some supplies in your GSTR 1, but not paid tax in GSTR 3B, then only that notice has come. So you need to identify that which supplier was there, which I have reported in GSTR 1, but I have not paid tax in GSTR 3B. And you need to explain it to the proper officer that the tax was not to be paid on that particular supply, and I have mistakenly reported that supply in GSTR 1 under maybe wrong head, or maybe I failed to amend GSTR 1 on a subsequent date, due to which that mismatch has arisen. Or in most of the cases, what happens, sir, is if there is any mismatch, let's say in the month of April, such liability is paid subsequently in the month of September. So whatever there is a mismatch in April, that exact amount of excess tax paid must be found in September or in any subsequent month. So you can show that April's tax have been paid in September and only the interest liability will. So you need to basically identify why there is a mismatch in GSTR 1 versus 3.
Okay, sir.
And with respect to your DIN number question, sir, I want to ask you whether the notice has been received from central tax officers or state tax officers.
That I have to identify from the client. I have not received it.
I'll tell you why I'm asking that. The DIN number circular has been issued by the central government, and it is binding only on the central government employees, the central tax.
Okay.
So if the notice is issued from the state tax, you cannot take a plea that it has to be accompanied by a DIN number. However, as a passing reference only, you can quote it in your reply that similar to central tax, you should also give certain unique identification number on your notices to identify that this notice is a valid notice that has been issued from your office. In case of central tax, definitely, sir, you should take a plea. There are some judgments also. You should quote those judgments. In all our cases, whenever there is a communication without DIN number, either on the mail or through a proper notice, we always take a plea that at the outset, since this notice does not contain a valid DIN number, this notice is deemed not to have been issued ever, and it not in existence, and therefore it does not require any reply to be made on the end of taxpayer. Ab sir, is case mein kya hoga ki whenever we take this submission, what department can do, since it is not a time barred case, what department can do is they'll say that okay, we'll issue a new notice with DIN number. We have time. So in that case, just to take a plea so that we can subsequently, in case need arises, we can go before the High Court and show them that since DIN number was not there, this particular notice is not enforceable. We just take a plea. But we in the subsequent para only, we immediately write that nevertheless, being a regular taxpayer, we are giving you the reasons of. So you also submit the reply to that particular letter, but take this plea that this letter is not enforceable because this does not contain a DIN number.
ओके सर. अच्छा सर, एक सिमिलर क्वेश्चन और था इसमें.
प्लीज सर.
अगर मेरा 2A मतलब जो इनपुट क्रेडिट का मिसमैच अगर बता रहे हैं, तो अगर हमको लिस्ट नहीं देंगे कि किस किस सप्लायर के इनवॉइसेस में प्रॉब्लम है जो हमारे इनपुट क्रेडिट में मिसमैच आ रहा है, उस केस में हम कैसे जस्टिफाई करेंगे, रिप्लाई कैसे बनाएंगे सर?
सर एक्चुअली अभी जो सर्कुलर आया ना, उसमें भी सर्कुलर में भी लिखा है कि सीक डिटेल्स फ्रॉम द टैक्स पेयर एज टू विच इनवॉइसेस आर देयर व्हिच आर नॉट रिफ्लेक्टेड इन 2A बट आईटीसी हैज बीन टेकन इन 3B. तो सर्कुलर भी यही बोलता है कि ऑफिसर जो है टैक्स पेयर से वो डिटेल मांगेगा कि कौन से इनवॉइसेस ऐसे हैं, कौन से बिल्स ऐसे हैं जो आपके 2A में नहीं आ रहे थे लेकिन आप 3B में ले गए. तो
सर वो कैसे आइडेंटिफाई करेगा? क्योंकि हमारे पास तो
क्रेडिट लेते हैं उसके पीछे एक आईटीसी रजिस्टर कह लो या परचेज रजिस्टर होता है, एक लेजर होता है जो बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स में आप एंट्री डालते हो कि ये इन 5 बिलों पे मैं जो है इस पर्टिकुलर मंथ में आईटीसी ले रहा हूँ, 5 या 50
जी जी जी.
आप सर उसकी ना एक ऑनलाइन 2A जनरेट होती है ऑटोमेटिक.
यस सर.
2A को एक्सेल में डाउनलोड कीजिए सर और वी लुकअप लगा के इजीली दोनों फाइल्स में कंपेयर कर लीजिए कि कौन से बिल्स जो हैं वो आपके 2A में शो नहीं हो रहे लेकिन आप 3B में उनका क्रेडिट लेंगे.
बट सर कौन से इनवॉइस का सप्लायर ने पेमेंट नहीं किया है टैक्स, ये कहाँ से पता चलेगा सर?
सर वो अगर आपके 2A में नहीं आ रहा तो एक बारी को हम ये मान के चलते हैं कि सप्लायर ने उस पर्टिकुलर मंथ में या उस पर्टिकुलर पीरियड में टैक्स की पेमेंट नहीं, तो वो आपको क्या करना है, उसका करेक्ट मैकेनिज्म क्या है कि आपके एंड पे भी, जैसे हम भी ये बहुत सारे केसेस ऐसे हैंडल करते हैं, तो हमने भी क्या
2A में तो आ जाएगा. अगर GSTR 1 फाइल कर देता है तो वो 2A में आ जाएगा सर. लेकिन मान लीजिए 3B में पेमेंट नहीं कर रहा है, ये मुझे कैसे पता चलेगा कि मेरे इनवॉइस का 3B में पेमेंट किया?
नहीं पता चलेगा, वो डिपार्टमेंट भी आपको नोटिस नहीं भेजेगा अगर आपके 2A में आ रहे हैं. तो अगर वो कब पता चलेगा, कब डिपार्टमेंट भेजेगा, जो बोगस इनवॉइस के केसेस हो, जहाँ पे सामने वाले का रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल हो गया बिकॉज ऑफ नॉन फाइलिंग ऑफ GST रिटर्न्स, GSTR 3B 6 महीने तक नहीं फाइल करी, रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल हो गया, तो डिपार्टमेंट आपको नोटिस भेजेगा कि क्योंकि आपके सप्लायर का रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल्ड है और उसने रिटर्न नहीं भरी है, तो इसलिए आप जो है आप अपना आईटीसी रिवर्स. तो उस केस में आपको सप्लायर को अप्रोच करना पड़ेगा कि आपकी वजह से मेरे पास ये नोटिस आया जबकि मैंने आपको टैक्स की पेमेंट कर रखी है, तो गिव मी अ प्रूफ दैट यू हैव पेड इट टू द गवर्नमेंट एक्सचेकर और यू आर गोइंग टू पे इट टू द गवर्नमेंट एक्सचेकर सो दैट मैं जो है लेजिटिमेटली इस आईटीसी को लेने के योग्य हो.
सर लेकिन उस केस के अंदर में भी अगर डिपार्टमेंट नहीं बताएगा कि कौन पर्टिकुलर सप्लायर है जिसका
बताएगा सर, कभी भी ऐसा नहीं होता सर. रिटर्न फाइलिंग वाले केस में हमेशा आपको बताएगा.
ओके.
GSTR 1 के केस में नहीं बताएगा क्योंकि वो आपके 2A के में होगा, लेकिन GSTR 3B के केस में हमेशा डिपार्टमेंट बता. अगर आपका कोई भी सप्लायर फेक इनवॉइस होता है या कोई भी सप्लायर जिसका रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल्ड है, डिपार्टमेंट हमेशा आपको वो लिस्ट ऑफ सप्लायर्स देगा. आप लीगली मांग सकते हैं डिपार्टमेंट
वो मतलब उनसे डिमांड कर सकते हैं सर ना?
बिल्कुल मांग. एक मैं आपको सर इसमें ऐड करना चाहूंगा, डिपार्टमेंट ने GST पोर्टल पे एक बहुत अच्छी फंक्शनैलिटी दी है, वो इम्प्रूव भी हो रही है, अभी उसको और बेटर वे में लाया जाएगा. बट एट प्रेजेंट अगर आप कोई भी अपने वेंडर का GST नंबर GST पोर्टल पे सर्च करते हैं तो नीचे एक शो GST रिटर्न फाइलिंग टेबल करके टैब आता है. आप उस पर क्लिक करेंगे तो ये आएगा कि उसने कौन से मंथ तक की अपनी GSTR 1 और GSTR 3B फाइल कर रखी है.
सर वो ठीक है, लेकिन अब उस GSTR 3B के अंदर पर्टिकुलर हमारे इनवॉइस का पेमेंट नहीं किया है, बाकी पेमेंट कर दिया है, तो टिक तो आ जाएगा सर. बट लेकिन ये नहीं ऑथेंटिकेट होगा ना कि मेरा वाला पेमेंट हुआ कि नहीं हुआ है.
बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं, वो सिर्फ आपको सप्लायर प्रूव कर.
जी जी.
तो आपको सप्लायर से उसकी GSTR 3B, उससे एफिडेविट साइन कराना, सर्टिफिकेट लेना, अंडरटेकिंग लेना, वो उसी चीज.
बट सर जब तक डिपार्टमेंट हमको लिस्ट नहीं देगा कि किस सप्लायर के पे प्रॉब्लम है, फिर हम किस सप्लायर को ढूंढेंगे? मान लीजिए हमारे पास 1000 सप्लायर है.
नहीं सर, आप मांग सकते हैं. You can always ask from the department कि give me a list since I am not able to recognize कि कौन से सप्लायर ऐसे हैं जिन्होंने 3B भरी नहीं या भरी तो मेरा डेटा नहीं दिखाया, वो तो आप ही को मेरे को देना पड़ेगा.
जी जी.
इनवर्ड के केस में सर जो मैंने आपको 2A1 वाला GSTR 1 वाला बताया उसमें आप आइडेंटिफाई कर सकते हो, 3B वाले में आप कभी भी आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर सकते.
जी 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 जी. हाँ 1 के अंदर तो मेरी वर्किंग है सर, वहाँ तो पता चल जाएगा वहाँ. थैंक यू सर, इट वाज वेरी इंटरैक्टिव सेशन.
थैंक यू.
वेरी नाइसली प्रेजेंटेड.
थैंक यू सो मच.
थैंक यू.
Thank you for the elaborative answer, sir. With this, we have come to an end of today's wonderful session. We hope you all found the session informative and insightful. I would like to thank CA Anmol Gupta ji for his valuable time and for sharing his wonderful insights with all of us. We, the team TAXO, thank you everyone for being part of the session and making it a successful one. Once again, thank you everyone.